Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the big news today, Marty Walsh, former mayor of Boston, former head of the laborers union up in Boston, head of the building trades up there, confirmed as Secretary of Labor. I think this is like the first time in like 40 some years that someone from labor is actually in charge of the Department of Labor. I mean, this is a big thing, and it shouldn't be. This is the thing that gets me. You know, we have no problem with someone, a big business person, being in charge of the Department of Commerce, but to have a labor person in charge of the Department of Labor and it being this unusual, crazy to me. But I'm thrilled to see Marty Walsh confirmed. Maybe now we'll start to see the Department of Labor actually doing what its mission is, helping workers. Just a thought. And here to share some thoughts on the good news today, I've asked our good friend Phil Glover to come talk with us. Phil is the National Vice President for AFGE District 3, the American Federation of Government Employees. Phil, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it.
So let's start with Marty Walsh. Good guy, happy with this appointment?
I can't complain about that at all. To have a card-carrying union member, union leader running the Department of Labor, I think is a great step.
What do you think his first things, other than finding the bathroom and where his office is, what do you think the first policies he should be moving towards are?
Well, I think he has to fix, I hope he looks at the workers' comp system. There's been a lot of people that have had controverted claims through workers' comp, especially during COVID. We've had a lot of issues with that as far as presumptive exposure on the job. Our TSA and Bureau of Prisons and VA people are not getting presumption of exposure. And I hope that's one of the things he digs into right away.
Yeah, see, I'm going on the OSHA side. I would like to protect people from getting sick, as where you're going, hey, we need to protect the people who have already been exposed. I'm like, let's stop people from getting sick and also take care of them.
Well, see, the new COVID relief package has some help in there on COVID relief and with presumption of disease and exposure. The problem is for everybody in this past year who has filed workers' comp claims, they're coming back now saying that the rapid test wasn't appropriate. Well, back at the beginning of this, there wasn't anything but the rapid
That's
test.
all you had, yeah.
So we're hoping that I certainly hope he goes and takes a look at that standard. And certainly on OSHA, you know, we've been struggling with OSHA all over the federal government. So we're happy to have him reinvigorate OSHA.
You know, what's interesting to me is, you know, OSHA was at its strength during the Reagan years. We had, you know, per capita the most inspectors. They did the most inspections. They were the most muscular during the Reagan years. During the Trump years, they fell to the lowest point in its history. So it was put into law in 1970. So since 1970, the Trump years, or the former guy's years, were its weakest moments.
Yeah, I think we've seen a real drop off on inspections and certainly on enforcement. You know, they really have, you know, they've gone to this voluntary compliance thing. And I'm sorry, but large companies are not going to go with voluntary compliance. For instance, we have the meat inspectors, food inspectors that are out there. They're at these plants. We've had a lot of members sick. We've had members die of COVID in those plants because the plant operators were not ordering them to have masks and precautions and those kind of things. And whether our inspectors had them or not, they were still exposed. So I certainly hope OSHA gets into that issue.
No, I'm right there with you. So last question on Marty Walsh, because, you know, how much can he do? How much can we expect for him to do as labor secretary?
Well, I think number one, he can guide the cabinet, right? I think he can speak out for labor when they're in these cabinet sessions or, you know, convening in different meetings and those kind of things. I think he can be a real voice in the room for labor, and he understands it. He's not just parroting something that he read somewhere. He understands it, and I really believe that he can keep the administration on track on labor issues, and I think that would be a good thing. If you go back to certainly history, Frances Perkins, she really was the voice in the room.
Right.
We need to do this. We need to do this, and sometimes she went out there on a limb, and I hope he goes out on some limbs.
And Frances Perkins obviously was FDR's labor secretary.
Right.
We're going way back.
Yeah, I just saw a documentary on her, so I just had a sense that he could be that kind of person for the Biden administration.
Yeah, look, I've said, recently that Joe Biden is probably the most pro-union president that I've had in my lifetime, hands down. Just on day one, when he fired Peter Robb and the number 2 woman, got them out of the general counsel's office with the NLRB. To me, that was the most pro-union move any president in my lifetime's made. And then he came out with the statement that supervisors shouldn't be harassing workers. Workers should have the right to organize. They should have the right to choose. And alluded to saying, hey, people in Alabama, I'm talking to you. To me, this is that marching towards getting the government to pursue the National Labor Relations Act as it was meant to be. The government promoting people to join and form unions, to keep industrial peace and to raise wages and conditions.
Yeah, I believe that a lot of the things that he has done in the first 2 months, he certainly has given a signal to labor that he's on their side. I think the rank and file, and you and I have talked about this before, firing the general counsel for the NLRB is and I won't say inside baseball, but it certainly is something that maybe the rank and file members just don't pay attention to. And so, but the case law that comes out of there and the decisions that come out of there affect every piece of workers' rights across the country. So certainly firing him on, he gave him a chance to resign, and he chose not to take it. So
no, I preferred him being fired, to be honest with you. I preferred him to be fired in the most unceremonious of ways. As an at-will employee, there's the door. But for me, it was much more than him just being fired. It was the symbolism, I think, that I'm hoping comes out of this. Because Peter Robb was one of the guys during the Reagan years who was part of the Patco firing. Right. What I've been saying is for years is it was the shot heard across the boardroom, which meant it's open season on workers. By him being fired, I'm hoping this is the shot being volleyed back the other way.
Well, I know between that and some of the other terminations that he did within the first couple weeks, it was a shock to some people, I think. Some of these longer term people, I think his appointments to the Postal Board will make a difference, once these 3 nominees get in there. Also, he fired the entire Federal Services Impasses panel, which deals with federal disputes over bargaining. And they had been as anti-union as anything you've seen. The first year of that panel, they would go further than management's proposal. If management gave you a proposal on, say, use of agency facilities, they would come in and say, no, we're not even going to listen to management here. We're going to go worse. And they did that for the first year and a half until we sued them, till AFGE sued them. And then they kind of settled down a little bit. But it's still, their decision making has been horrible. So he fired them. I think that was about a month ago, I would say.
Yeah.
So
now, one of the things that President Biden has done is he signed a bunch of executive orders, basically trying to undo all of the damage that the last guy did. In fact, there were the three executive orders that the last guy signed attacking your members and your organization that Biden has undone. Can you tell me real quick the 3 things that the last guy did? And is Biden moving us back towards undoing that damage? And if not, can Walsh be a guy that moves us faster in that direction?
Well, I think that what Biden has done is in one executive order, he eliminated 3, actually, I think it was 4 of Trump's executive orders that were anti-union and anti-employee. Those included representational time to represent your members. And what people don't understand about the federal sector is we have to represent everybody. We're an open shop. And so official time years ago was a trade-off for a closed shop. And so we were supposed to have negotiated official time. So they took that. They kicked unions out of their negotiated office space. They changed a lot of the bargaining rules as far as collective bargaining, limited bargaining to 18 weeks on a national contract, which is almost unheard of. So all of these things. But the Biden order, it's Executive Order 14003, what it does is it restores all those things. It actually says to rescind and restore anything that was done on the basis of those executive orders to pre-executive order operations.
Kind of like a reset button.
Exactly, like a complete reset. Even contracts that were done, Social Security and different contracts, told them to go back and take out the portions that had anything to do with those executive orders, which is huge. The problem for us is that some of these agency managers have dug in like ticks, and they have gotten used to the Trump way, and now we're having a battle back and forth to get them to implement the executive order as intended by the President of the United States.
Now, what do you say to the person who goes, Phil, we're 2 months into this. Give the man a little time.
Well, see, I think he took his action. He did 14003, the Office of Personnel Management, on March 5th, sent out guidance to all federal agencies on how to implement and each section what to do. So now it's up to the agency heads, and it's up to the managers and the directors and all of those folks. And they're playing dumb. I had one the other day. I have one from the Veterans Benefit Administration in Philadelphia, Lily Newble. She right away, well, we're just waiting on guidance. We actually emailed her the guidance from OPM, and she still can't seem to make a decision. She is an executive, an HR director, Alina Giampa, that is just nasty with unions, nasty. And, to us, it's like, look, the pendulum has swung. Your management, you need to understand, there's a new administration, and you need to follow what they're doing. I'm not blaming Biden for not reaching down now after 2 months. And he did what he was supposed to do. The administration now has to obviously police this. They got to tell agencies, no, the president was serious. The chief of staff, people up at those levels need to come down at the agencies and say, look, he's not kidding. And I think the tie-in to Marty Walsh is that he's not kidding. Here he put a guy in the cabinet that is a labor leader. And so, and some of the other picks that he's making in different places are sending that signal, but you still have these folks that, they're going to be in denial for a while, I think. And we are going to have to just keep, pounding away and raising the issue of this. Yes. We had an HR person, a labor relations person. I saw an email this morning out of our Pentagon Force Protection who said they declined to bargain over 7106B1, which is permissive subjects that our union asked to bargain over. They declined to do it, whether President Biden signed an executive order or not. That's just going to have to be unacceptable, Rick. I mean, it's just going to have to be.
So, I mean, isn't this where the secretary of whatever that division goes, do it or there's the door?
Well, we are going to have to work our processes and go up the chain. And it's like the VA. We have a new secretary over there. We have a new chief of staff. There's been meetings over there about our representational rights, but they're still not restored. And that's after you have a secretary of the VA. So, we hope that the White House keeps sending the right signals, and we hope the agency heads. These are not hard things, by the way. Right. These agencies, there were mechanisms in place up until 2018, and even past that, to grant official time for representatives. There was already people on what was called 100% time. There were already office spaces. Now, they might have gave away one of the offices, but they could certainly find similar size space to give it back. These are not difficult things. And that's what's driving me a little, making me a little bit animated, because these are not hard things. They had them. The agencies took them away pretty quick when Mr. Trump signed his executive orders. But they don't seem to want to just, if I'm a hospital director at the VA in Philly, right? I know what office space I took away from the VA union.
Right.
I know what, so I can go to that president and say, hey, I read the executive order. I read the guidance. Hey, let's go look for an office.
Do your
How's
job.
this?
Do your job.
This is not, waiting is not difficult.
No, just do your job. But this is another one of those examples, and this is what I tell my union brothers and sisters. When you lose something, it's almost impossible to get it back. That climb to get just back to where you were. And this is where my fear is, in the next election, we end up with a Republican governor here in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania becomes a right-to-work state. And then you end up having to fight that hill. And hopefully at some point, if it does happen, you're able to claw it back. But it's a long, long slog.
Yeah, I can only hope that in that scenario, and that's a scary one, I can only hope that we can use whatever Montana did to fight theirs off, because I know a lot of work was done up there. I felt that legislature, if any, was going to go ahead and implement, and those guys, those men and women in labor up there really put it to the ground and was able to stop it. And I hope in Pennsylvania we're going to have to do the same thing. Yeah,
we got a lot of work for us, and good on my Teamster sister Erin Foley and her union out in Montana. I had her on the program talking about this back then. They did a great job. But Phil, I appreciate you taking some time for us, sharing some thoughts. I wish you the best, and I hope you'll come back and talk with us again real soon.
Thank you, Rick, for everything as always.
Good stuff. Our good friend Phil Glover, National Vice President of AFGE District 3. Quick break, right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.